Do you ever feel stuck between brain fog or ADHD symptoms and society's expectations just not quite understanding what's going on behind the scenes? You're not alone. I'm excited to welcome our guest, Keren Butcher. She's the founder of ADHD Alchemist and a coach for helping people break free from limiting beliefs. We're going to dive into masking, which is the exhausting habit of faking being normal to fit in and do what you're supposed to do. Keren will also walk us through some simple but effective tools like reframing negative thoughts and EFT tapping, which I'm just familiarizing myself with now. So I'm very much excited to learn more. These hacks can help you build confidence, boost mental resilience, and show up as your unfiltered, unapologetic self. Keren, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Karen. I'm dead excited too.
Before we get into your profession in the ADHD Alchemist, I'd like to learn about you.
All right, so if you haven't gathered from my accent already, I'm from London. I come from a big family, 3 older brothers and an identical twin sister. But yeah, so how I started out was with my coaching career was actually I started as a 20-year-old going over to the States in Wisconsin as a camp counselor. And I absolutely loved it so much that I ended up becoming an activity instructor working in Australia and England. So I've kind of lived all over the place and I've had loads of different jobs. But now I'm fairly settled, kind of just outside of London. And I'm living with my girlfriend, Megs. And I say just fairly settled because eventually we want to be like digital nomads and travel around the world, keeping in line with my online business. Things about me, I'm a little bit bonkers. I love adventure. I always have, hence the activity instructing within me. But I can actually be quiet sometimes. And yeah, just in general, I think I've always loved living in like unconventional life. And I like advocating for people to just listen to themselves as well. And whether that's living an unconventional life or conventional life for them.
Keren, can you tell us now about the ADHD Alchemist and what you do as a coach?
Yeah, so within the ADHD Alchemist, I guess I'll go into a little bit more within my story of how it all came about. But I've always been a true advocator for people who are neurodivergent. I've always been a coach working with young people who have special educational needs or are deaf. So I'm really, really passionate about helping the minority groups as well. And I guess this all comes about, from masking my ADHD symptoms to kind of fit into societal expectations. So if we go back to me being a child, and I think a lot of people would relate to this, and you may as well, Karen, being told to be a good girl, to listen, to focus, to stop interrupting, although I still struggle with that one. But ultimately, I was, even as a child, you're just being what others want you to be. And then from there, I guess, going into jobs, I started like overselling myself because I didn't want them to see my weaknesses, perceived weaknesses. And so because I'm overselling myself in jobs, I then had to keep up with what I promised, which led to overexerting myself and then ultimately having to leave a job. Other masking my ADHD symptoms was things like I haven't been able to focus in jobs. I'd forget things. I'd be confused. I'd be tired. And I feel like I became like a professional blagger, honestly. I'd be like, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And people would just see that confidence within me and be like, oh, okay, cool. She knows what she's doing. And I'd turn to a colleague and be like, by the way, what were we meant to be doing? So it was really difficult and sensory overwhelming within workplaces, but within my life as well. For example, I was once in my brother's car. I think he had a new girlfriend, so he was trying to impress her. And he pumped up the stereo, and I was in the back of the car, and it felt like someone got a hammer and was just hammering inside my brain, and I felt physically sick. But again, this is part of the masking. I didn't want to speak up. I didn't want to feel indifferent. And so I just sat there silently feeling, just awful. But this is part of my journey, and it's really, really refreshing to be able to speak today and and I'm sure other people can relate to this, feeling different all your life. So then you end up people pleasing because they want to, you just want them to love a certain part of you, but actually it ends up making you feel more resentful maybe towards them, but also yourself. And then you end up feeling quite depleted. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many times in my life that I've masked, and really masking unconsciously as well as consciously. You're not even aware of it.
I'm curious if you're masking unconsciously. I'm sure we all do it in some way, shape, or form. How do you transition into being conscious of it? Do you ever still catch yourself masking?
No, I definitely still mask, but I don't mask as much because I definitely notice it. I think for me, it was like coming to terms and understanding my ADHD. So the more and more I understood it, the more and more I could look back and go, in that circumstance, I was masking, this circumstance, I'm masking. So I guess to understand masking, you need to kind of open it up and go, what actually is it? So is that all right if I go into that a bit more?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so I feel like masking is like you're conforming, and it's like a conditioned version of yourself to feel accepted and to feel validated by other people. As I said, you're either doing this consciously or unconsciously, hiding your symptoms to fit in. I know when I'm masking, I'm definitely trying to fit in to a version of what people think I am versus what I want to be and do. And I can mirror neurotypical behavior, and ultimately you're avoiding your own instincts, right? And what this does, it does lead to exhaustion because you're not listening to yourself or your own needs. And I want to give an example of this because it's so easy for me to say this, but if you're a visual person, such as myself, you might go, oh, this might make more sense. So imagine stepping in onto a film set every day. And, like on a film set, first thing that comes along is you're getting your makeup done, but then that's already hiding your true face. Then you get an outfit to wear, but then that's replacing your clothes. Then you're handed like a script and you have to memorize it perfectly. So already you're like suppressing your instincts, you're adjusting to everyone else's cues, and you're playing this part flawlessly. But by the end of the day, you're drained, you're disconnected, you've probably barely eaten, you've barely rested. And then tomorrow you're having to do it all over again. So it's just one of those things. It's just an exhausting performance is what I would call masking. And yeah.
The example of being on that film set resonates. Everything is drained out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, no matter who you are, neurodivergent or not, we all have this role to play in society. The more you are yourself, the more it gives other people the opportunity to show up as them true selves. So it's a really wonderful thing, I think, in society. We've got an extreme amount of pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain way. But as soon as we can just say, hey, we're flawless, we're all flawless, we're all perfectly imperfect, it gives everyone that opportunity to be that as well. And I know I've talked to you beforehand about what actually, I've talked about masking, but where it actually originates, I think is
Yeah.
an important one as well. And where it actually originates is from childhood. We get these survival adaptations, and they're called survival adaptations for a reason, because we need to survive in life. And so it could be people pleasing, perfectionism, avoidance, hyperachieving. It can come in all types of forms. And
I think I'm
yeah.
every single one of those, by the way. It's like check, check, check.
Don't worry, we all actually have them, but some of them come along more like prevalent than others. And then in other experiences, you'll see the other ones rearing their head. And they do serve as a purpose. As I said, they're a survival adaptation. But when you notice that you're no longer being your true self, and you're having to step away from that and be what everyone else wants you to be, that's when you know it's hindering you and not helping you. So I can give an example of this if you want.
Yeah, please do.
So I mean, I bet everyone's got this example as well. You take yourself back to school, and I don't know, at one point in your life, you might have been humiliated in front of all your friends or the teacher might have humiliated you. And then you may have gained that belief that you're not good enough just as you are. And just from that one experience, but then a similar experience might have happened. So you keep gaining that belief, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough just as I am. And then so a survival adaptation, a masking kind of ability to cope in the world would come through, and that would be people pleasing, because you're thinking, right, I've got to people please. I want these people to like me, so I'm no longer humiliated ever again. So it's really vital that we understand why we mask so that we can start unmasking.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you know the source, it's like when
Yeah.
you name your emotions, it takes a lot of the energy out of it.
Yes, absolutely. So how do we recognize when you're masking?
Yeah. How do we begin the process of being conscious of when it's happening?
Okay, so I can give you a couple of things that you might already say. People might say, saying I'm fine when you absolutely know that you're not fine. You might downplay your pain. It might be an excruciating pain. People are like, "Oh, you're all right," and you're like, "Yeah, I'm absolutely fine." You might be physically exhausted, and again, you're saying, "No, I'm not tired." That's when you are masking. So it's good to start realizing when you're saying those things. Just taking a pause before you answer. You might push through your symptoms as well. So you're ignoring your body's signals and you just keep going, even though you know that you need rest. And as we spoke about that example before, you know that you needed that. And I've done that. I mean, I've got a frozen shoulder at the moment, and I've had it for the last 3 months. And I definitely neglected myself, and I didn't listen to myself for the first 2 months. I was pushing through, just trying to work because I didn't want to let people down. And that's a form of masking. But ultimately, it wasn't serving myself, and I wasn't listening to my body. So it only just makes it worse. Other examples is like you might feel pressure to appear healthy. You might mask your symptoms to just avoid judgment or stigma around your diagnosis. You might overcompensate. You work harder to prove your worth, fearing that others are going to perceive you as weak. You might struggle to set boundaries, like you might say yes, even though you know that you want to say no, just because you're worried about disappointing others. And you might mask because you feel like you're so unseen and misunderstood, which a lot of people in the minority absolutely feel. So we just grasp that people don't know what we're going through, and we just pretend it doesn't bother us. So yeah, I hope that shines some light on it.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to those examples. Moving into your coaching, how do you help people start to address some of these things that you're talking about?
Probably the same for you. It's like surrounding yourself around people who truly accept you and want to hear about what you're going through. You've got a beautiful community and you're advocating for so many people's needs, and that's a safe space for people to go to. So that is one thing I would always say. You're never alone. So always reach out to community. Have if your friends aren't so much there for you, maybe family members are. So just reaching out to authentic people, really, who are going to understand. I would always say work on your self-compassion. That is key. So a lot of the time we're like, oh, what's wrong with me? And instead you can replace that by starting to say, well, actually, what can I do to help myself? And then that just kind of shifts things like such as blame or guilt or into actually a really nice way of going, hold on a second, it's not my fault, and I don't need to be more self-deprecating, and I can start being kinder to myself. So I'm always pushing the self-compassion. What other ways? I would say just starting to notice when and where you feel the need to like hide your true self. Who is it around? What type of people? What type of environment are you hiding yourself? And listen to yourself. So instead of starting to put yourself around those people and that environment, just start to feel comfortable in saying no. Um, And it might be hard at first, but it does get a lot easier as you go.
In that situation, what if it's like a workplace situation where you couldn't avoid the people that's kind of giving you a toxic environment that may trigger internal like negative thoughts and whatnot? How do you encourage someone to go
Um,
within? Yeah.
Funny enough, I've been in this situation, and the first thing you want to do is start off a good routine at the beginning of the day. So I used to sit in my car and I'd just do a bit of meditation. I'd do some emotional freedom tapping technique, which I'll demonstrate a bit later. And again, because I could see the people that I worked around weren't helping me, they were hindering me. I actually just started to take myself away. And, there could be comments that was like, you never want to hang around us at lunchtime. But actually, by spending time on my own doing what I wanted, or maybe I just needed to self regulate, I just found that it became easier and easier. And I actually had more energy for the work day versus the more and more I pushed myself to be around those type of people, the more that my energy was depleted. So I hope that helps. That's something I think I just, if possible, step away from those people, speak to colleagues that are going to be understanding management. If it needs to go to a higher place, HR.
Respect and appreciate giving yourself the permission to step away. And even sometimes if it's 10, 15 minutes or 5, it's enough to recharge
Yeah, definitely.
and reflect on your emotional roller coaster of being diagnosed later in life.
Yeah, sure. So just over a year ago, I was working in a mainstream school, just working one to one with an autistic boy. And I really saw that the system was kind of against him. They wanted him to kind of fall in line, follow the rules. And I've always been into advocating, as I said. So I was kind of in the perfect place at the perfect time. But within this system and within this classroom, I saw a young lad who had this beautiful big smile and he was really cheeky, and really quite excitable. But what I viewed was the school teacher was really quite rude to him. I know he wasn't interrupting out of malice or anything. He just got excited. But she would just pick on him and just send him back to the back of the class and got him to stand there and would just say some really nasty stuff. And then one day I heard the teacher say, like, if you can't control yourself, you're not going to go on the school trip next week. And I just thought, my God, this boy he clearly has ADHD, potentially autism too, and you're disciplining him and punishing him for something that is out of his control, and I just thought that was so unjust. So every time I saw him, I went up to him and I just was like, you're brilliant, don't change, just stay the way you are. I promise this story does have relevance to it. Anyway, so I was back in the school, I was advocating for my young lad and for others, but it ended up being a bit of like a losing battle, and I was actually ended up being bullied as well within the school from the same teacher. And we'd just done a course on ADHD, funny enough. And I was just like, oh my goodness me, tick, 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 tick. I ticked all of them. My girlfriend for years had been saying, you've got ADHD. I kind of half joked all my life that I had ADHD, but I didn't know what this meant. So from there, I just started reading everything I could get my hands on with ADHD. And all I kept reading was it's a neurological developmental condition affecting your executive functioning. And I just cried. Just as you said a moment ago, the grieving process, it was honestly harrowing. I've said so many times last year, like, I don't want my neurodivergent brain anymore, like, take it away kind of thing. Like, it just felt too painful to have this realization about my brain. And then one day I just went, ding, I'm going to turn my pain into purpose. My purpose became bigger than my pain. And I just wanted to help as many people as possible. And I think every time I thought back to that young lad in the school, it just kept me going. I just thought, no, I want people to be treated like that. I want a world and a society that is more accepting and accommodating. So that's when the ADHD Alchemist was born. I'd had a holistic business before, but I didn't really know my niche. And then suddenly I was like, yes, I know, I understand. And so it was fellow ADHDers. And suddenly I had like this fire back in my belly, which is quite ironic because my business logo is actually a phoenix. And I just felt like I rose from the ashes. But I've got to be honest, within all this, and maybe you'd relate, we're really resilient at one point, and then suddenly you're pushed back down, and I felt like I just crumbled back into the ashes because obviously I was telling my family, look, I believe I've got ADHD. And other than my twin sister, who's like carbon copy of me, both bonkers as each other, she was really accepting and it was like, yeah, of course we both do. The rest of my family wasn't. And so that's what I talk about when kind of crumbled. And it was things like, oh, why do you need a diagnosis? They didn't believe I have it, negative connotations to it. And just never felt so hurt, unloved and misunderstood in my life. And that's saying a lot. Feeling already misunderstood my whole life, not knowing that I had ADHD. And if you remember, I talked about survival earlier on. Our brain, craves this acceptance from our pack, our families. So it was really, really hard to feel like I'm going against something that I truly believe in and is my true self. And it was honestly, it's probably the hardest thing I've had to do, but equally, I'm the most proud I've ever been because I'm doing something that is going to really, really benefit this community and more people as well. So yeah, all again, it's about like my pain being bigger than my purpose being bigger than my pain. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any hard feelings. Well, I try not to have any hard feelings towards my family now because I always say this quote, what you resist persists. And I don't want to resist my brain or my family. So I'm just trying to choose compassion and acceptance. So it's been a journey and a half. Hope it was a bit of a monologue. Sorry about that. But I don't know if your story relates as well in any way, shape, or form.
I definitely see parallels. Fortunately, my family was rock solid.
Yes.
And it could be different simply because my disease was so blatant and so severe. What would you say to someone who is just diagnosed and they don't have the support from their family? How can you help them navigate that?
Yeah, so it all comes down to how you ultimately view yourself. And as hard as it may be about acceptance, it does come, everything, any problem that we've ever got comes down to self-love and self-acceptance and self-compassion. The more you like who you are and you accept who you are, the easier life is going to be. Obviously, you're going to be navigating the journey of your family, not accepting that. But what I would say is give it time. I know that within the time period of talking to my family and now, my mum is coming on leaps and bounds. And so sometimes it's not a personal thing, is one thing I would say. People just don't want you to change or they don't want aspects of you to change. So when they are not understanding, it's actually a projection. So I would say just give it time, see if they come round, and if they're unwilling to, honestly, there's so many other people in the world that are going to support and love you, and we can't choose our family, but we can choose our friends.
I love that. People who are interacting with someone who is just diagnosed, but they don't understand it, what would you want to say to them?
Knowledge is power, and power is using that knowledge. So I would always say, look, would you mind listening to this podcast? This really inspirational person who's gone through a really similar journey that I've been on. And just hearing that, I think would really help if they were willing to listen to that podcast. Or maybe actually, I've got this book. Would you mind reading this book? Or yeah, I mean, there's so much out there now. Social media as well. It's just, are they willing to read about it? Is the first step really. Um, yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
But I think that's helpful because, as you said, knowledge is power. Circling back to your first point, give it time. A lot of times it just takes time to process and they'll get there in their own time or they won't, but then we can accept it is what it is.
And it's also good to see it from their viewpoint as well. So everyone's
Fair,
always going to
yeah.
have a perception of an illness, a disease, and neurodiversity, whatever it is. So it's also good to say, okay, I'm taking judgment out of this. What do you think about this? Like, what is your opinion on it? And then instead, we're not filling in the blanks. We're not filling in the narrative because that's what we all tend to do when someone doesn't say much or they just give us one sentence and we go, they hate me. They never want to see me again. They hate every single thing about me, but without actually listening to what they've got to say. And same goes back that, they need to listen to what we've got to say as well. It's imperative.
Yeah, communication, right?
Yeah, yeah. Communication is key. It really, really is.
I was going to explain how belief coding works and how we can shift our negative beliefs into more positive, empowering ones, and then get into some of the modalities of EFT, CBT, and the other tools that we can leverage.
Yeah, sure. So with belief coding, I guess I should break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's loads of different modalities kind of squished into one. So we've got emotional freedom technique, cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming. I think there's honestly about 9 and it's all kind of put into one. And ultimately it kind of builds like mental resilience and mental freedom because you're getting to the root cause of a problem and within the subconscious and you are clearing it. So, when I gave you the example of, being humiliated within a school
Yeah.
and that the negative limiting belief was, I'm not good enough just as I am. We have these beliefs about us, but when do we ever know where they came from? So that's what belief coding does. We can access the actual memory from where it came from. So it could be within your lifetime, it could be within your mother's womb, or it could be past life. And then we basically go into that memory and it's like you're reprogramming it. So you're taking away the negative emotional kind of cord. And then so instead of saying, I'm not good enough as I am, you're replacing it with, I am more than good enough, just as I am. We have over 70,000 thoughts a day, which is crazy. And we don't even realize them. So it's imagine you're catching a fly within your home and then you're throwing it out the window. That's kind of like belief coding. And then instead of a fly coming back in your house, it's like you can plant a nice, like you've got a flower growing or something like that. So it's getting to the root cause of within the subconscious, and then it's being replaced with like positive ones. Breaking it down a bit more, beliefs are, if you're not already sure, beliefs are what we accept about ourselves. We come to accept as being true about ourselves, and limiting ones are just that, they limit us. So I'm not good enough. That is a limiting belief. And what was I going to say? Giving an example of how like belief coding's changed my cognitive ability and my thought patterns. When Karen gave me this podcast, I was like, the first thought, and this is really important to start listening to your thoughts, was I can't do this. It's way out of my depth. I'm not going to remember everything to say. And then straight away that came through was like, I just calmed right down. And then I just thought about the bigger picture and I thought about helping people. And I was like, I can do this. And I started to list all the different experiences in my life where I've just been able to, push against my challenges, be creative and thinking of ways that I could do it. So that's how it happens. It's not that you're eradicating your negative thoughts as such. It's that you're building that mental resilience. So you might start to hear a negative one, but a positive thought like then comes over it. If someone comes to me with depression, then we can clear that depression within like 3 sessions. It's going a different way. It's not a conventional way. It's an unconventional way. But because you're getting to the root of the depression, then you clear it.
Yeah, you can kind of break through all those layers.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's what I've done with myself. I used to have daily anxiety. I used to have social anxiety. And I mean, you asked me today how I felt when I first got on, and I was like, I'm fine. Years ago, I would have gotten here and I'd have been shaking like a leaf and I wouldn't have been able to do this. So that's how I know the changes within me. Yeah.
Incredible to be able to essentially transform yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And anyone can do it. I mean, it is honestly the first step is acknowledging your beliefs, because your beliefs create everything. Your thoughts create your beliefs, no, sorry, your beliefs create your thoughts, which then create your feelings, which then create your actions, and then create your results. So that is why I love what I do, because starting with the beliefs and understanding them is crucial in understanding why people might self-sabotage, why they might have addictions, why they might have health anxieties. There's a complete and utter layer to this. So it's really, really beautiful. It's not just about going, okay, we're going to go from positive belief to a negative, from a negative belief to a positive, and that's where we end. It's going to be, no, let's get to where it all started and kind of press reset on that.
There's a reason why it may not be resonating. If you don't know the source, you're never going to be able to fully make that transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. And a simplified way of this, if you don't actually do belief coding technique, is what you can do is you get a negative belief that you hold in about yourself, and then you change it into an empowering one, and you find evidence to say that that new empowering belief is true. So just looking back again, how I did with this podcast, I looked back at all my previous experiences to say, I've overcome lots of challenges, I can do this. And that is one step that I would actually say for you and your community today, and into helping empowering your mind. Because you're absolutely right, we can't just go, I'm not good enough to I'm good enough. It's not powerful enough. Your brain evidence all the time. So let yourself, let it work for you instead of against you, is what I would say.
I love that. Thank you.
That's all right.
You want to shift into giving our community one small mindset shift to start rewriting our beliefs?
Yeah, so I want you to think about, if everyone in the world had an autoimmune disease, how would you look at yourself differently now? So you've woken up, and every person you know, everywhere you go, everyone's got an autoimmune disease. How are you now viewing yourself? That's the first thing that I would ask. What are you now saying about yourself? And then I want you to write that down, your new positive beliefs down daily, and just for you to start transforming those thoughts about yourself, because unfortunately we can't wait for the world to change. We've got to be the change that we want to see as well. Hopefully that helps.
I'm thinking if everyone had an autoimmune disease, then this wouldn't be so hard.
Mm.
And so then I'm telling myself that this is really hard. So every day I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle. That's heavy. That's a lot of weight to carry on a day-to-day basis.
That absolutely is. And what I'd like to look into from there is why is it so hard? I'm absolutely not, I want to validate that autoimmune diseases are hard, but I'm interested from a personal point of view. For you, why do you feel it's hard?
Even on a to-do list basis, just dealing with all the appointments, insurance, medication. The second piece is I'm doing all these things to make myself healthy, drinking my smoothies every day, eating my salads. But even with your best efforts, you can still be getting chemicals and substances in your body unknowingly. That's hard and frustrating. So those are the couple immediate things.
And how does it feel, just acknowledging that, and saying that this is what find hard? How does it feel?
Okay, I can acknowledge it, but I don't have to carry it.
There's power in that for sure. And I think it's so
Yeah.
vital, validating your feelings and why you feel this way. I think that is so, so important. We don't do that enough. What we try to do is suppress it and say, I don't want to know that it's hard, and I don't care, and I'm just going to get on with it, and I'm going to mask. And actually, by just saying and acknowledging, you know what, this is hard, and I'm not having a good day, and the world should be more supportive. They shouldn't be putting chemicals in our food. It's not helping me, it's hindering me. By just saying that it's just okay, I'm actually hearing myself and acknowledging why I feel it's hard. And I think that is a really great step. That's the beginning. of a great journey right there, you know.
But I want to add up, hearing it back, I sound like such a complainer in a victim attitude. That is cringeworthy to me. I'm always like, it's got to be personal responsibility, accountability for yourself. But everything I just said to you was 100% being a victim.
Yeah. And where's that come from? Has someone said that you're being a victim? Or when you hear that I'm being a victim, where do you say, if I say, where's that come from, what would you say?
I'm not sure, but like I would say that I am because I'm complaining about the world as it is and I'm not focusing on what I can control. So I feel like I need to shift that line of thinking to,
Why is it a bad thing? I'm going into a therapy mindset now. Why is it a bad thing
yeah,
to complain?
because it's not serving, it's not purposeful, it's not productive.
And what would be productive?
Focusing on what I can control and maybe even being more positive about it. I work out
Yeah.
most days of the week. I'm getting tons of fruits and vegetables with my smoothies. So I think I should focus on doing what you can and leave
Yeah.
it at that and not worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a mixture of like acknowledging how you feel and then also having this self-awareness to say, okay, what can I control? Which you're shifting into that beautifully and saying, I can control this and I can control my mindset and what I put in my body. And there is absolute power in that. But not putting yourself down too much to say like I'm a victim, still kind of shifting into some kind of self-compassion as well is I believe really important.
It is fair to say it's hard and maybe it's okay that it can be hard at
Yeah,
times
yeah,
and
it
have
can.
compassion in it that way.
Yeah, because some days you're going to have more strength than other days. So the days that you don't and you find it hard and you're mentally drained, allow yourself. This is what I would always say, allow yourself to have those days because you're going to need those days. Because the days that you are able to get up, you feel great and you can go to the gym and you can have your smoothies, those are the days that you feel, you're going to feel that shift in your mindset. So I'm not really sure what I'm getting at, but I'm just,
No,
yeah,
I think what you're saying is it's okay to have those
yeah.
times and then lean into the times you are feeling better and you have more strength.
Yeah, yeah. Because
It's okay to not be 100%, which is something I just struggle with. I need to be highly achieving something at all times.
yeah, and then, again, with what I do, I would be like, feeling the need to achieve, I could look into that and be like, okay, where's that come from? And understanding that a bit more, because that could be helping you. It could be being a hyperachiever absolutely helps you. It might help you because you've now done this podcast, but also it might be
Yeah.
exhausting you. So it's about it's always in life about just having a bit of a balance, really.
Working through that really exemplifies how you work with people and how
Mm,
you can really start to sort these things out.
yeah.
Because
Yes.
you first asked me and I'm like, I don't know. And then I
Mm.
gave myself pause and I was like, oh, actually, there's more there.
Yeah, there's always more, and as soon as you feel the emotion coming in, and
Yeah.
that's when you know there's something from your past that is controlling how you're kind of feeling, or not controlling, determining how you're feeling in the very present moment. It's as soon as you feel that emotion. So, yeah.
Very neat. Thank you for going through that.
Oh,
I want to shift into this EFT and I don't
yeah,
even,
sure.
you mentioned what the acronym is for. Or what the acronym is. I don't even know that much about it. I just know that it's some sort of tapping and it's supposed to help you regulate your nervous system.
Yeah.
So can you
But
like get to the basics for us?
I absolutely feel like you've cracked that. That was perfect. Emotional freedom technique is what it says on the tin. It's basically freeing your emotions using a tapping technique. So it's a really wonderful way of, if you're feeling a certain way, of acknowledging it. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling in pain, you're feeling tired, it's a way to feel what you feel, but also empower yourself. Yeah, it's really beautiful process.
Can we go through an example of this
Yeah, why
together?
not? Okay, lovely. And this can be for your viewers as well. So when we do this tap-in method, just make sure you're in a place that's fairly quiet and that you're not going to be disturbed. And so all you need to do is start just tapping on the side of your hand. This is called the karate chop. And you're just going to repeat the same sentences as me. Okay. So taking a lovely big deep breath into your body, and just breathing out and just repeating after me. Even though I feel exhausted, frustrated,
Even though I feel exhausted,
and
frustrated,
betrayed by my body,
and betrayed by my body,
I deeply love and accept myself.
I deeply love and accept myself.
Even though my mind and body
Even though my mind and body
feel like they are working against me,
feel like they are working against me,
I choose to send myself kindness and healing.
I choose to send myself kindness and healing.
Even though I feel stuck in this cycle,
Even though I feel stuck in this cycle,
I know I am capable of shifting my energy.
I know I am capable of shifting my energy.
Okay. Now we're going to just tap above the eyebrow. I feel drained physically, mentally, and emotionally.
I feel drained physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Now to the side of the eye. The pain, the fatigue, and the brain fog. It's overwhelming.
The pain, the fatigue, and the brain fog, it's overwhelming.
Under your eye. I feel like I've lost control over my body.
I feel like I've lost control over my body.
Under your nose. I hate how unpredictable this is.
I hate how unpredictable this is.
I never know how I'll feel day to day.
I never know how I'll feel day to day.
On the chin. It's exhausting trying to explain my condition to others who don't understand.
It's exhausting trying to explain my condition to others who don't understand.
On the collarbone. I sometimes feel like a prisoner in my own body.
I sometimes feel like a prisoner in my own body.
It's under the arm. I feel isolated and misunderstood
I feel isolated and misunderstood
and mentally exhausted from dealing with this every day.
and mentally exhausted from dealing with this every day.
Top of the head. A part of me wonders if I'll ever feel like myself again.
A part of me wonders if I'll ever feel like myself again.
Okay, just let yourself feel what emotions are arising. Taking another big deep breath in and just breathing out, just on top of the eyebrow again. But what if my body is not my enemy?
But what if my body is not my enemy?
What if it's simply asking for my attention?
What if it's simply asking for my attention?
Side of the eye. I choose to release the fear and frustrations that are weighing me down.
I choose to release the fear and frustrations that are weighing me down.
Under the eye. I am stronger than I feel in this moment.
I am stronger than I feel in this moment.
Under the nose. My body is always trying to protect me,
My body is always trying to protect me,
even if I don't fully understand how.
even if I don't fully understand how.
The chin. I release the need to fight myself.
I release the need to fight myself.
I choose to support my body with love and patience.
I choose to support my body with love and patience.
On the collarbone. I am safe. I am healing.
I am safe. I am healing.
I am open to feeling better in every way.
I am open to feeling better in every way.
Under your arm. I choose to focus on what I can do rather than what I can't.
I choose to focus on what I can do rather than what I can't.
And on top of the head. Every small step I take
Every small step I take
is leading me towards healing and balance.
is leading me towards healing and balance.
And I trust my body's ability to recover.
I trust my body's ability to recover.
Take a lovely big deep breath in and breathing out. Just a quick sample, really, from just how you can potentially feel frustrated within your body, maybe hating your body, hating the way your life is, to kind of just having a level of acceptance and self-compassion and kind of having a bit more of a empowering look about it.
I appreciate the exercise because moving your body shifts the energy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just something quite quick as well. It's
Yeah.
and something all you don't need to necessarily know everything. As long as you're doing some form of tapping, you're just kind of moving that kind of stuck energy, and you're just moving it around. And as I said, just by validating how you feel, just kind of shifting it. That's how it kind of works.
Karen, I thank you so much for all the information and examples you gave us today. Is there any last things that we didn't touch on that you want to be sure to mention?
Yeah, so there's quite a high percentage of people who have ADHD who have autoimmune diseases as well. And I think what I've covered here today, and I could summarize, is grieve what you feel is really, really crucial. So if you need to grieve the process initially, you grieve the process. If you reach out to communities and people who understand and have also been on the same journey that you've been on, or are going through. And yeah, and the first step is just starting to acknowledge what you're saying about yourself, and just seeing if you can start changing that narrative. So yeah, I can be found on Instagram at the ADHD Alchemist with a one at the end. And then my website is www.theadhdalchemist.co.uk.
Thank you so much. And to our community, if you have any other questions for Karen, please drop us a note. If any of this resonated with you, I strongly encourage you to learn more about her and her work. She's phenomenal. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.